Good afternoon, and welcome to the Scaringi Law Lunch Break. This is your time of the day to learn a little bit about the law while you enjoy your lunch. Today, the House Democrats unveiled their articles of impeachment against the President of the United States. Jerry Nadler, the chairman of the House Judiciary Committee, said in a statement earlier this morning, he said, "Today, in the service to our duty to the Constitution and to our country, the House Judiciary Committee is introducing two articles of impeachment, charging the President of the United States with committing high crimes and misdemeanors." The Constitution, and this is the end of Jerry Nadler's statement, and now I'm giving you my analysis. The Constitution in Section 4 of Article 2 states, "The President, Vice President, and all civil officers of the United States shall be removed from office on impeachment and for conviction of treason, bribery, or other high crimes and misdemeanors." The articles of impeachment proposed by House Democrats do not charge treason or bribery. Now, it's interesting to point out that Democrats are not charging the president with bribery, considering so many of their congressional leaders, including Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi, have repeatedly accused the president of committing bribery. Also absent is any charge of obstructing the office of Special Counsel Robert Mueller. In any event, Chairman Nadler stated the articles charge high crimes and misdemeanors. Now, the phrase high crimes and misdemeanors is not defined in the Constitution. This leaves it up to Congress to decide what qualifies in any particular case. Historians and legal scholars say it's generally understood to mean a serious abuse of the public trust. The phrase high crimes and misdemeanors was well known by the framers of our Constitution. It was a phrase used in impeachments under English law. It's important to note that during the Constitutional Convention, George Mason proposed adding the word maladministration to treason, bribery, and high crimes and misdemeanors, and that was opposed by James Madison and the others on the ground that it was too vague and would give too much power to Congress over the president. Also, Alexander Hamilton in Federalist Number 65 defined impeachable offenses as those offenses which proceed from the misconduct of public men, or in other words, from the abuse or violation of some public trust. They are of a nature which may with particular propriety be denominated political, as they relate chiefly to injuries done immediately to the society itself. So, from that, we can conclude that whatever the president did, it must be more than maladministration, which means doing a bad job, and it must be up to the level of harming society itself, breaching the public trust, to be considered a high crime or misdemeanor. Now, according to the House Democrats, the articles of impeachment charge the president as follows. 1, abuse of power. 2, obstruction of Congress. What is abuse of power? Well, we're not sure. It's not a crime. You can search the U.S. Crimes Code, and you won't find the crime called abuse of power. So there is no statutory definition of abuse of power. So those in Congress, they'll decide what abuse of power means. Back in the 1990s, Republicans included abuse of power as one of the 4 articles of impeachment of President Clinton. But that did not even get enough votes to pass the Republican-controlled House of Representatives. Now, it's reasonable to conclude that Democrats do not believe that what Trump did is a crime. Otherwise, they would have charged him with a crime. And that would present a much clearer and much more straightforward case for impeachment. However, Democrats have charged the president with abuse of power, which they believe qualifies as a high crime or misdemeanor. And it is possible that abuse of power could rise to the level of high crime or misdemeanor. It could be the type of high crime or misdemeanor that would qualify under the Constitution for impeachment. However, I don't think the Democrats have presented such evidence in this case, in this case for impeachment against President Trump. Adam Schiff, the chairman of the House Intelligence Committee, explained the evidentiary basis for the charge of abuse of power. Schiff said Trump solicited a foreign nation to publicly announce an investigation into his political opponent to help his presidential campaign, and that if the Ukrainian president did do what Trump asked him, Trump would release hundreds of millions of dollars in military aid and give him a White House visit. The problem with this charge is that there are credible allegations of corruption involving Hunter Biden, former President Joe Biden's son, and the Ukrainian natural gas company Burisma that was under investigation when former Vice President Joe Biden instructed the then Ukrainian president to fire the prosecutor investigating his son's company and his son. So there are credible allegations of corruption involving the Bidens, and President Trump is required by the Constitution to take care that the laws are faithfully executed. So the president's request that the Ukrainians investigate credible allegations of corruption is not an abuse of power. Instead, it is the lawful exercise of power. Adam Schiff stated the president undermined U.S. national security and undermined the integrity of our next election as additional bases for his abuse of power charge. Well, those statements are not facts. They're conclusory statements, and by the way, they're made without any basis in fact or reality. So this charge, abuse of power, should fail under any reasonable test for abuse of power on the facts itself. The second article of impeachment should be of grave concern to all Americans. Democrats will charge the president with obstruction of Congress. That, too, is not a crime. So what is it? Chairman Nadler stated, the president concealed evidence. No, that's absolutely false. The president did not conceal evidence, and there is no factual basis for that allegation. Chairman Schiff stated the president claims he's above the law. Also, that's absolutely false. In short, the House Intelligence Committee subpoenaed certain high-ranking officials in the White House, including Secretary of State Mike Pompeo and Chief of Staff Mick Mulvaney, to attend and testify at the impeachment inquiry hearing. The White House, through its attorney, responded by stating that it had instructed those officers who have been subpoenaed to not attend because of executive privilege and because the impeachment inquiry lacked a constitutional basis. So when the time came for Pompeo and Mulvaney to attend and testify, they didn't show up. In response, Congress did nothing. And that's the problem. Congress did not do what it should have done, which is go to court and seek a court order compelling the men to attend and testify. The White House had a legitimate legal basis to refuse the subpoena. If Congress disagreed with the White House, it should have sought a ruling in the judiciary. This is how our system of checks and balances is supposed to work. 3 co-equal branches. When there is a legal dispute between the executive and the Congress, it's for the judiciary to resolve the dispute. If Democrats went to court and obtained a court order compelling Pompeo and Mulvaney and the others to attend and testify, and the White House had still refused, then the Democrats would have grounds for impeachment, because that is called contempt of court. But Democrats chose not to use the constitutional system designed to resolve legal disputes. Instead, it's seeking to impeach the president for exercising his lawful right to assert a good faith reason grounded in law to refuse a subpoena. This itself is an abuse of power by Congress. Democrats said today they did not want to take the time to go to court on this matter because the election is just 11 months away. But that's not a legal justification. So this second impeachment article is illegal and unconstitutional. And that's ironic that House Democrats are impeaching the president based upon a ground that is itself an abuse of power and unconstitutional. In any event, that's about all the time we have today for the Scaringi Law Lunch Break. I hope you've learned a little bit about the law. Thanks for listening and enjoy your lunch.